Welcome back, Source Nation. You're listening live to Mailbox Sundays with your hosts, Dr. Terry Jackson, Life Coach Tim T., and Pastor Kenny Smith.
Source Nation, welcome back. As I mentioned prior to the break, our special guest this evening is none other than Mr. Agyei Tyehimba. We'll be talking about his creation, his vision and his purpose of the Black Liberation University. And the topic for the day is the purpose and power of the Black Liberation University. You know, I could begin to talk about this gentleman's accomplishments, but I wouldn't do him proper credit or give him proper credit or his proper due or respect if I tried to tell his story. What we'll do is allow him to tell his story. Mr. Agyei Tyehimba, how are you this evening?
Brother, I'm doing well. I'm feeling good, and I'm glad to, this is I believe my second appearance on Source Nation with you, so I'm really feel honored to be invited back.
You know, it's a pleasure to have you back. I know that you're working on some major projects, you know, especially with the Black Liberation University. You know, just tell us, first of all, a little bit about yourself and a little bit about the Black Liberation University and its purpose and the power and vision that you have behind it.
Okay, a little bit about myself. My name is Agyei Tyehimba. I'm an educator, author, and activist in Harlem, from Harlem and in Harlem. And I guess it's safe to say most of my life, my adult life, I have been involved in helping to educate our people, helping to organize our people, and working specifically with our youth and with families. And I've also got involved with writing. I wrote a book called Game Over in 2007 with, basically more like I wrote it for his brother A.Z. Faison, his memoir, A.Z. Faison. If people saw the movie Paid in Full and know the character of Ace, his brother A.Z. wrote that movie. It was based on his true life story, a former Harlem drug kingpin that turned his life around and was now trying to educate people on not only the whole street game of drug trafficking, but the government's complicity in flooding our community with those drugs. So, you know, that was an interesting project, and that led me to other books. But I think the things that I think are most important for myself to talk about myself are 17 years ago, myself and two colleagues, New York City public school teachers, started our own middle school, a new middle school in the Bronx, New York, and is now going on 17 years old. It's graduated over 1,000 Black and Latino middle school students into high school. And of the original classes that we had in 2000, many of them have graduated college, are in grad school, even have young families, or in the working world. Many involved in activism themselves. So that type of thing, I think is most important. You know, when I look at my own life trajectory, so to speak, and then I think most recently we started a Harlem Liberation School last year February, and the last May started Black Liberation University YouTube channel. So I think those things are the things that are most important to me because they are more on the lines of building an institution that outlive, you know, us. And I think that's one of the most important lessons we can learn from our ancestors like Carter G. Woodson. You know, you think about this brother that started his own association to study our history, his own publishing house to to get all his and our work out. The forerunner of Black History Month. This brother was an institution builder. This stuff is here long after our brother transitioned to become an ancestor. So I kind of want to emulate that spirit.
Okay, that is outstanding. That's an outstanding vision and a goal to have, and especially when you talk about emulating, that spirit. Let me ask this question, because I'm seeing quite a few people around the country who begin to talk about economics. What is the role of economics, as you see it, for the Black Liberation University as well as the Harlem School?
Well, I could tell you this, my brother. I admit when something is not my specialty. Economics is not my specialty. But I can tell you that every important type of work we want to do, be it for career, for our households, or in the community, at some point will have to intersect with the question of economics. And to me, that comes down to the science of being able to finance projects, to sustain communities, and to develop communities. And obviously there are many different ways people do that, in a capitalist framework or a socialist framework, but I do think that as it relates to Black Liberation University, one of the things that I do is monetize my videos that are of original content, so that, the YouTube puts the commercials on there, and based on the amount of views you get and the length of time people watch it, it begins to earn money from those ads. And that's helpful. Some people have actually made an entire living off of that, where they quit their actual jobs. That's not where I'm at, but it is a way to be able to take, earn some money and then put it back reinvest it into that project or other projects. I think that it's been said of many Black people that we buy what we want and beg for what we need. And I think when we understand economics, we start understanding that we have to not just think of the people we're trying to help. We can't just think of our great idea or vision. We always have to think of, well, how are we going to fund this? And how are we going to create employment opportunities, and how do we protect ourselves and insulate ourselves from outside negative influence? And one of the ways we can do that is by being self-sufficient. So the economic piece is of paramount importance, basically in anything that we do. Not only earning money, but knowing how to save it properly, invest it, and things of that nature. So, for instance, at Harlem Liberation School, starting in the September cycle, we're going to be rolling out a curriculum, and part of that curriculum will be financial literacy. And for Black Liberation University, which is the YouTube channel, we have a whole playlist. We have about 43 playlists on just about every important topic you can think of: real estate, law, history, education. We have a playlist on financial literacy with some excellent material and content where people can come in and at their leisure they can pause it, stop it, come back to it next week, take notes. But there's some really good content there. We got people like Boyce Watkins, and some other people like that. So for me, the economic piece is part and parcel of anything that we're doing. Quite honestly, it's that important. And if it's something that, for instance, I say is not my specialty, I make sure that I read on it and I try to connect with people who are learned and experienced in that particular field. So yeah, it's indispensable.
That's important, and you're absolutely correct. Economics is a part of everything we do. It's a part of every decision that we make in our life, whether we're going to the store, which route we take, which could impact our budget, when we choose to eat, where we choose to eat, where we choose to go to school, how we choose to dress, everything. So you're absolutely correct, and it's glad to hear that, and you realize the role of economics in everything that we do. What began your journey down this particular pathway of following our ancestors, wanting to have the spirit of some of our ancestors? What was it, and when did you realize that this was the path that you wanted to take? And ultimately, what was it that enabled you to create or inspired you to create the Black Liberation University?
Well, I would have to trace that all the way back. And speaking of ancestors, would be my immediate family. My father, who is an ancestor now, and my mother but mostly my father were the first people that would tell me stories of Nat Turner and Harriet Tubman and Malcolm X and Black Panther Party. My father had the opportunity, living in Harlem at that time, to actually hear Malcolm speak, and he was very impressed with Brother Malcolm. And I think listening to Brother Malcolm's speeches got my father more on the road of consciousness, so to speak. And so he passed a lot of his stories and wisdom down to me. He had, by the time I was a young child, he had collected a pretty decent home library of different books. He would show me about the art of the Benin civilization, and he was really into the contributions of ancient Africa, and also really heavily into the Black Power movement. So I think it started, I was rooted there. And also, about the time I was in 7th grade, my mother grounded me for something I must have done that was, in violation of house rules, and so I had to stay in the entire weekend. No phone, no TV, no friends, nothing. And, being bored, I kind of was searching around my room for something to do or read, and I stumbled upon an old copy of one of my father's books, and it was oxidized, man. I mean, the pages were yellow, it was cracking. You turn the page and it break off type of thing. And it was a copy of Malcolm X Speaks. And my father had always told me a lot about Malcolm. But when I read this book, it was like it just spoke to me. I guess the prior knowledge I had based on what my father had shared. And I just went through that book in that weekend. And I said to myself, I want to be like this brother in certain respects, and I want to do some of the things that he talked about. And a lot of what he talked about was education and building institutions and instilling pride in our people and things of that nature. So I kind of wanted to be in line with that type of nationalist thinking, and then from there was just the place of worship I attended as a young man in Harlem, the football coaches I had that were black, the teachers I had that were black, all of these different components, this village, so to speak, concept was involved in my early education, and they essentially helped to make me the man I am, for better or worse. And so all of that goes back to the training. I tell people everything I needed to know as a black man, I learned in Harlem, growing up. Now, of course, there were other things that added on, but that was my foundation, right from the community, from the places of worship to the schools to the community centers, my family. Like I said, I had coaches and mentors that didn't just teach us football plays, but actually got into our history and got into certain character traits that we should have. And all of that, I think, or that whole gumbo is, I think, what got me on this particular path, And then I think as I went to college, that became a little more formalized because now I'm in Black Studies classes and I'm getting mentored by certain professors and I'm learning more. I'm now becoming a student leader and I'm able to actualize and manifest a lot of the things I had read all those years. So I think I would credit probably the community with getting me on this particular trajectory. And then it was kind of like, okay, how am I able to better communicate, better educate, and reach more people with what I believe are inspiring, empowering messages of self-determination and self-sufficiency, Black solidarity. And this is where the Black Liberation University comes up, because this internet and this YouTube platform really provides us the ability to have a classroom without walls. When I was a school teacher in the classroom, it was great. I loved teaching. Or when I was an adjunct professor at this college downtown New York, I loved it. But it's very restrictive. The only people who get that information are those people enrolled in your class. And I always I said it would be something if you could have a real classroom without walls, and the internet through YouTube really provides that. It's free. All you need is a laptop and a webcam, and internet access, and it just takes the middleman out of it. We no longer have to be under NBC, CBS, cable stations. We can be more independent, So I think I hope I answered your question, though.
Yeah, you did. You answered it. And here's the question I have for you. I know from time to time it can be very frustrating trying to get the message out, trying to change the minds of the people, trying to get them to understand the reason and the need for liberation. Has there ever been a time where you just dropped your hands and say, hey, this is it, I'm getting ready to give up?
Well, I'll tell you this. There have been several times that I have had my own little private venting session, and have been very, in some respects, discouraged, in other respects saying, I need more help. I feel like I'm doing too much alone by myself. I've been there. There have even been times when I felt that people and organizations and institutions and YouTube channels that were really not providing relevant, credible information were getting far too much attention, and those that really were not getting enough attention. And yeah, definitely frustrations with is this message getting out to the people that need to hear it, and if so, to what extent are they receiving it? But the one thing that keeps me grounded when I have those moments, and I would say over the past 30 years, I have had those moments frequently, but what keeps me grounded is this one thing, and I just recorded a clip that I put on our channel. Do we need every Black person to be conscious? And I talked about that. We do an event and you see 15 empty seats, you can get demoralized. You've been working to, promote something that's not fully packed. You could take that personally, So I look at it this way. There's different groups of people in our community. There's the group that they're going to do the serious study and reading, they're in an organization or started an organization. They're out there in the trenches, boots on the ground. They're doing workshops. They're connecting with other black people. Your hardcore group of educators, organizers, and activists. But that group is very tiny. Then you have a group of people who agree with much of the work that small group of activists is doing. But the problem is they're not going to go to meetings. They're not joining any organization. They're not giving money to help any organization. These people you'll see in the places of worship, some of them, the bars, the beauty salons, they watch the news and say, that's right, Black Lives Matter, right on. But they're not going to get involved. And that's a larger group. And then there's a group of people who couldn't care either way, and even a group of people who willingly and deliberately collaborate with those working to sabotage us. So what I say is, I don't waste time with the last group, the collaborators, and I don't even waste too much time with the people who don't care at all about this type of empowering work. We have quite a lot of people in that small group I talked about of the hardcore, die-hard activists and organizers, and that larger group of what I would call sympathizers, people who agree, but they just have not gotten involved. So what I figure is I work with that small group of people who I know are serious and committed, and then educate that larger group of sympathizers who are on the sidelines, because many times you can get some of those people to get off the sidelines and get on the playing field. And I find that using my energy in that way, it keeps me grounded. It protects me from being demoralized. I don't get upset. I don't expect every single black person to get the message, and I don't expect every single meeting or event to be packed. I understand the forces that are going on, and I understand that most of these movements never involve the majority of our people. It's always a minority. So I think that's what helps me when I kind of hit that wall of this should have been better attended, this should have gotten more views, this should have raised more money. I always remind myself that, you're dealing with different groups of people, and great things take time to build. So that's what helps me to pace myself and keep my perspective in a healthy place.
Yes, that's extremely important when you can understand and know, and then so you can apply the persistence to it. You can apply the consistency that it needs, and most important, you know that you're going to prevail in what you're trying to do, because as you said, the majority of the movements a very small group of people. That's what normally carries it through. Now, let me ask you a couple of questions as it relates to Harlem, New York. There's a great deal of gentrification happening in that area, if it hasn't already completed itself. But given the fact that you're in the Harlem area and you have the Black Liberation University, how receptive are the people in Harlem to your idea of the Black Liberation University?
Okay, now you're talking about the YouTube channel or the actual organization, Harlem Liberation School?
All of it.
Well, I would say there are people who are very receptive. But again, it goes back to that analogy I gave of those different groups. People that I would pass by and say, hey, brother, hey, man, when's the meeting? Where's it located? What time is it? Now, I have told this person this information 10 times. I've given them our business card, but they'll ask me to send. Now, this is a person who, for whatever reason, they're not going to go. But they're interested, but they're not committed. And I understand why that is, and I don't take it personally. But I'll tell you this: we've had some marvelous events at Harlem Liberation School. we just had a really good discussion talking about is black feminism relevant to the black community, in honor of Women's History Month, and a lot of really, really strong events. And many of them have been well attended, and some of them have not. So I don't see that. I don't see it if the room is packed. I don't necessarily see that as a victory, and if the room isn't packed, I don't necessarily see that as a loss, because at the end of the day, it's to what degree are we impacting people with, empowering information and skill sets, and that's really what I look at. So the turnout, I think people have been very receptive. We get a lot of social media traction. I've been on quite a few radio shows talking about it, and I think that our YouTube channel has helped spread the word about the importance of what we're doing. But I should add, it's a slightly different formula, and I think when people are used to something happening in a certain way, and you come with a different formula, it takes a while to gain traction. And what I mean by that is, I think most of our community is used to, we're having the church kind of run organization, or the community organization that comes with a particular ideology, a particular method of dealing with black empowerment, has dues, has expectations, somewhat territorial. They want you to come to their meetings. They're not going to help other organizations recruit people for their projects because they want people to come to their organization. And our formula is radically different, and I think that took our people a while to wrap their minds around, like, this is different. I don't think they knew how to interpret it. So what we do is we say, as long as you're black, you can come in. And we don't care if you're Christian, and we don't care if you're atheist or agnostic. We don't care if you're into Islam or Buddhism. We don't care if you're man or woman. We don't care if you have money or don't have a lot of money. Come in, get the information you need, share input. And it's not uncommon to see some of the people in our audience in another month be one of the people that's facilitating a workshop there. So we're very, if it were a church, non-denominational. We're not hitting people over the head with one way to do anything, because we realize that our community is very diverse in terms of political ideology and all types of things. And at the end of the day, we're going to need to learn to appreciate each other's difference of opinion and be able to work together despite that, while still being critical of each other in positive ways and still gaining important skill sets and information from each other. So when you survey black communities, you have usually this type of organization, they're nationalists. If you come in there from something else, you're going to feel uncomfortable, and you're probably not want to go back, right? So we figure we have an organization. You can come in. Not only can you come in despite your political belief, but if you lead a workshop there, you can actually recruit people to your organization. We're not territorial because we're not a recruitment-based organization. We're more of a community organization that provides a safe place for discussion, disseminating information, and building skill sets, in terms of community organizing, political education, history, and things of that nature. So we're not threatened if you come in, you hear a speaker, you say, I want to sign up for what she was talking about. We're like, that's perfect. Do that. Get involved. Some people have come out to the meetings, and they learned about an organization 3 blocks from them they didn't even know existed. And so now they know, wow, I can walk to this organization, so they sign up. And so slowly this formula is starting to impress itself upon people who now are getting it. Before they didn't quite get it. What do you mean? We don't have to do this. We don't have to do that. People didn't understand it. I think were even maybe suspicious. I think over time, people are starting to see that all of our communities need a liberation school model, because our people need to feel safe in expressing their truth, disagreeing with mine, and we need to be able to learn from each other. We have all of these educated formally or informally people right in our community that we are not identifying and therefore cannot benefit from. But a liberation school model goes grassroots. You know, we had people in there talking about emergency preparedness, and we're going to have people in there talking about real estate. We had people in there talking about dealing with police misconduct in our community. So we give people real solutions, and the people get to understand that the brother or sister that gave you that job or that taught you this skill or that opened your mind to this idea may not even be in your ideological framework.
Right.
The brother that taught you about self-defense might have come out to church. And the sister that introduced you to this man came out of Eastern Star. You see? And the brother that taught you this was a new Black Panther. So then people start to see Black solidarity at work. So I think it's taken a little while for it to gain traction, I think, for those reasons.
You know, over the next 2 years, where do you see liberation in its growth, and when does entrepreneurship become a part of the conversation and the equation at Black Liberation University?
Okay, in the next 3 years, I see Harlem Liberation School having its own building and owning it, possibly as a nonprofit, but whether nonprofit status or not, I see us generating our income through products we produce, through educational products we produce, and through contracts, possibly with city agencies and youth groups, providing actual services in conflict mediation, providing consulting in certain workshops, selling the products we make through our speeches and our workshops. And I think that the entrepreneurial piece is what we're working on. See, for our next cycle, we go according to school calendar. So starting in September, we plan to roll out a curriculum of information that now is focusing very squarely on these sort of skill sets and tools that are developmental and that people can go out and use almost immediately. So that will involve financial literacy, entrepreneurship. There's a community organizing segment of that curriculum as well, and that'll get into public speaking, editorial writing, building a social protest movement, all types of things. But for the remainder of this particular cycle, which will go until July, we're going to kind of do what we've been doing in terms of the consciousness raising through workshops, through film screenings and panel discussions and things like that. But starting in September, we are shifting gears and we're getting right into how do we form a tenant association? What are our rights? What is the process of launching a protest campaign? What does financial literacy refer to? And how do we teach this to our children? How do we deal with credit? And what are the things we need to know about interest? And also, the entrepreneurship, also, brother, I'm excited to say we're working on starting a rights of initiation program for our young people also for next year. And certainly in the curriculum for them, entrepreneurship is a very important part because, we read more and more that small businesses are the backbone of this country. It was a time people thought, oh, it's just the multinational corporations, but the small businesses actually play a major role. And in our community, it's about being able to create employment in our communities and our families even. It's a shame that we have teenage kids and they got to look for jobs, or college kids, they got to go downtown to get a job. And yet we have all of these professionals and scholars and activists that have the potential to create jobs ourselves. It's just a matter of one's thought process, I think. Obviously, nobody knows everything when you're starting something new, but if people can commit to the thought that it's important we do for ourselves, and then if we start with that principle, it becomes a priority, then I find that when I prioritize and commit to something, everything I need to know or everyone I need to meet essentially happens after I make that commitment. So I think that's a very important part. Now, certainly we know that entrepreneurship alone would not be enough to take care of all black people in this country. Some people are going to have to work for somebody. Some people are going to be manager type people, and some people are going to be your CEOs. But we certainly know that we could do a lot to guard ourselves against the bad economy of the country by thinking about being institution builders, and that relates to being entrepreneurs. All these people buying jewelry. I just think what Claude Anderson says on that is very important. The things that we use, that we eat, that we wear, we should be thinking about how we can manufacture, produce, or distribute them. It just makes common sense, really, to me. And I think as we commit to that, we'll see more of that happen.
It's interesting that you mentioned Dr. Claude Anderson because I'm part of a group that's organizing, and I'm part of a group that's sponsoring him here in June, and that's the reason. We have to look at entrepreneurship from two perspectives. We have to look at it from that person who has the courage and is committed to starting the business, but we have to look at it from also, as you mentioned about employment. We have to have entrepreneurs who are looking to build businesses that can hire anywhere between 50 to 200 people at a time. So the corner store is good, but it doesn't provide the kind of employment that will allow for the hiring of 50 to 200 people. So we have to look toward technology products. We have to look toward consumer package products, creating products. As you said, Dr. Anderson say, anything that we use, we should be able to make, and we should be able to sell ourselves. And so the numbers begin to become extremely important around the types of businesses that we seek to create. And we have to move in a manufacturing direction as well as a growth direction from a farming perspective in order to provide for ourselves what we actually need on a day-to-day basis. So, it sounds to me like the Black Liberation University is on an excellent path. You have a great vision for it, and, I'm sure that the people in the community will become more and more involved as time goes on. If you had two key points to leave us with about what you would like to see and how you would like to see others get involved with the Black Liberation University, what would they be?
Well, I think the first point would be to keep our faith, not be demoralized because this person is the president or that one isn't. Recognize that our history teaches that we have always been our saviors and our salvation, and that this period of time will be no different. We survived enslavement, colonization, Jim Crow, segregation, crack, heroin, and every imprisonment and everything else. This era will be no different. That everything that we identify that we need to have to make us whole and to make us empowered, we must put it there. Or we must have significant power in that institution that is working to put it there and say, and that we don't come from a people of that were whiners and complainers and beggars, and to get off that demoralizing sort of phase and to get to rolling up our sleeves, being visionaries and doing the work. Whatever needs to be done, we have the capacity to do it, but we must commit. I've seen people who are not as, let us say, knowledgeable as others, not as wealthy as others, not as gifted with all these natural talents as others, but they were committed. Commitment and discipline is severely underrated. And so that's one thing. The second thing I would say is that I'm noticing more and more young people, and by young I'm going to say your 20-somethings, are unlike when I was 20-something and younger, and I went through a series of mentors and what you might call rites of initiation, apprentice type of programs, where I had to work with people who were masters in their field of African American studies, community organizing, whatever. And when I finished that process, I was able to say that I had a certain mastery of certain skill sets because I was taught by people who were masters of it. What I'm finding today is there is a tendency amongst many of our young people to disavow elders and disavow mentorship and disavow apprenticeship. And what's happening, therefore, is there are a lot of people flying solo, inadequately prepared, full of energy and ideas, but don't have the skills to operationalize the idea. And so I think we have to bring back our rites of initiation. Elders need to step up and make their services and their information available to young people. And we got to teach young people that it is not a crime to shut up, listen, take notes, ask questions of those who are more accomplished and more experienced and more knowledgeable than you. There's nothing wrong with that. It saves you a lot of... I'm sorry?
I say those are two excellent points.
Yes, thank you.
Two excellent points. No. I agree 100% with you. And I know that times are changing, and we as elders also have to change with the times in order to really engage with the youth and show them the importance of knowing their history and the importance of rites of passage. We're running out of time. We got about a couple minutes left. Thank you so very much for being a guest. Again, outstanding guest, outstanding show, outstanding information. You and I will definitely be in contact, and I'd love to be able to, at some point in time, get there, go through some of your programs, present some information. I think I have something that I could help, and it's right down it's in my wheelhouse, if you will. So thank you again for being such a great guest.
Thank you, Dr. Jackson. And I just want to quickly tell people, please go to YouTube, check out Black Liberation University and subscribe. Check out Harlem Liberation School on Google. And also know I have books on organizing education, Truth for Our Youth, for our young people, and The Blueprint, a BSU handbook, are two books I think would really help us with community organizing and with empowering our young people right in the home.
Thank you so very much. We'll make sure that we get all that information out there to our listeners. Thank you again.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Source Nation, until next week, see you soon.